Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and in today's episode I head out hooker cray diving for the very first time off Mark's boat. And for those of you wondering, what is hooker diving? Well, basically it's like scuba diving, but instead of having a tank, you're connected to an air compressor on the boat which pumps your oxygen through a hose. And this was my first time ever diving on air, so I was heaps excited to give it a crack as I knew it'd be much easier than free diving, and this was probably one of my favourite dives of all time. So as soon as we jumped in, Brad came across a couple nanny guy, and in South Australia, it's legal to spearfish while diving on air, so all he had was a snare, which somehow managed to still do the job.
That was insane! Holy crap! The first time, it swam right through the loop.
So moments later, about a dozen nice-sized kingies came cruising by, which was such a sight to see. We weren't having much luck finding any crays, which was surprising, as the structure we were diving looked very promising. So I decided to have a crack at snaring a nanny, and after chasing it around for a few minutes, it led me to the first cray of the day. After securing the first one, we started seeing them, and Brad found this cave that was absolutely loaded with them. So he went in and managed to get an absolute monster. At this stage, we were running out of daylight, so I had to make do with the time we had left, as our sole mission was to get Mark some crays. So we quickly got to work and managed to grab a bunch, while poor Brad was stuck holding them, as classic me forgot to bring a catch bag. But it was seriously ridiculous how easy it was to catch them. So easy, it almost felt like cheating. I seriously couldn't get over how easy it was to catch them on air, compared to trying to grab them while freediving. I got a bit complacent trying to grab this bigger one though.
I let them slip through my fingers.
So after that we decided to call it a day. But we headed out again the next morning in some slightly better conditions, and this time Fred was joining me, as Brad was off catching tuna. We decided to go for a bit of a spear that morning before we jumped on the hooker, as apparently it's not ideal to free dive after diving on air. So we were diving at a different location this day, and the structure was amazing with huge caves and ledges everywhere, and I knew there'd be a few big crays hanging around. But on this dive, I got myself a nice nanny. After that, I spotted the big queenie, so dropped down on it and took a shot, which unfortunately was a bit high on it, which gave it some fight, and sadly it came off my spear as my flopper didn't engage, which absolutely sucked, and obviously I feel bad about it, but I'm quite certain that based on where I hit the fish, it would have most likely survived. Anyway, I wasn't actually planning on showing you guys this footage, as I know that us spearers like to often brag that spearfishing has very little to no bycatch compared to other forms of fishing. so to lose a fish like this is definitely not ideal. But sadly, it does occasionally happen, which is the reality behind it. After that, I decided it was time to switch over to the hooker and start looking for some crays. However, we might have got a bit distracted, as the fish life of this spot was absolutely magical, and I could have literally just sat there and watched them all day. We came across this foxfish, which was cool to see as I'd never ever seen one before. And I also got a short glimpse of this harlequin in a cave. So in this next clip, you probably have no idea what's going on. But basically, there's a big buck sitting in the very back of this narrow cave, and I'm literally sandwiched in there trying to get the snare around its horn. But it was really deep in, and if it wasn't for the hooker, there was no way I would have been able to get it out, as my whole body was literally wedged inside this crack. Eventually, I managed to get the snare over its horns, and Fred helped me pull the snare shut and wrangle it out, as I barely had any space to even move. So we came more prepared this day and actually brought along a catch bag. However, it was a bit of a struggle trying to get it in the bag, as it was clipped onto Fred's weight belt. So in the end, he had to take it off, which made it much easier to get it inside. So after searching for a good couple hours, I came across this absolute beast of a cray, and all I needed to do was to catch a glimpse of its legs to tell that this cray was something else. I couldn't control my excitement and immediately called out to Fred for him to come over and have a look. I really didn't want to spook it though, as I could see it had quite a bit of space to back up into. Anyway, you would never guess what happened next. Stupid me thought my GoPro was recording. So I hit the record button, but instead of recording, it freaking turned off the bloody camera. This was such a shame, as it put up a big fight and would have made some epic footage. And to make matters even worse, my second GoPro broke this trip, which also had some amazing footage. However, rest assured that this next cray season, there's no doubt you'll be seeing many more crays around this size being caught. Well, that's the plan. But once again, if you made it this far into the video, I'd really appreciate if you give it a like, as it really does help with the YouTube algorithm. But thanks for watching, guys.